Yeah, thanks everyone, and appreciate having the floor for the next hour or so. As Mark mentioned, I was a Bentley student, graduated with back then it was a CIS degree, and I was I mean it's funny to think of it as 15 years old. The CIS sandbox. I know it started in just kind of the corner of one of the rooms. I think in the La Cava maybe. It was just it's fun to see it kind of still kicking and Mark's still leading the way. But yeah, excited to talk a little bit more to you folks about how you can build a career path with a technical and business education with your time here at Bentley, and really leaning into some ideas of what I did in my career. Doesn't have to be the path everyone follows, but it's worked out well for me so far. And a lot of these roles were things that I didn't even know of when I was during my 4 years at Bentley, and it took me a few years out of college even to discover them. So a little bit about who I am. I'm the third member of my family to go to Bentley, class of 2014. My older brother and sister also went to Bentley. Some of us were there at the same time, so that was kind of fun. They graduated with finance and marketing degrees, and then I was the nerd that stayed with the more technical education. I live in Denver, Colorado. I spend a lot of time in the mountains with my dog. Try to get outside, doing whatever I can, whenever, if it's skiing with her, hiking, fly fishing, and recently got into mountain biking and have laid into that as just a new passion. As you'll find after you graduate, there's a little more limited time. You spend more time on weekends away from your job, and for me, that's a great way to bring a lot of balance. Is getting away from technology when I'm not working, and that helps me just do a lot more when I am working, of having more energy and just technical depth. So I'm not going to have everyone raise their hand, but a career in sales, that was always something that I never envisioned. Right, we always imagine the Wolf of Wall Street, or if you're OG Glengarry Glen Ross style of sales. That was at least my perspective when I said I'm going to Bentley. I'm getting a business education. Right, sales. That's for our friends over at Babson, right? Well, that still may not still be the case, but honestly, that was my impression. That hey, sales is for entrepreneurial folks. I'm getting a business education. That wasn't on my radar until about 5 or 6 years after graduating and spending some time into the workforce. And so, as I mentioned a little bit in my introduction, I'm currently a team lead here in the West, or a manager of the West sales engineering team at a company here called Pentera. We're actually headquartered. Our US headquarters is just north of Boston in a place called Burlington, Mass, right near the mall. So there's few folks see any opportunities or things that way. Right, we do. I'll give my shameless plug of Pentera does have a presence not far from you folks. But really, what I wanted to talk to you in this audience here today is what is a sales engineer? Great. I say this role. It's sales. It's engineer. It's what makes kind of the pairing of both of them together, and that's really where I think. And I feel like my Bentley education set me up for the best blend of both that technical and business mindset. So, a little bit about what this entails in terms of this role. I'll get into some sort of like day in the life of the role before I get into how I got here. But it starts. Here's an example of my desk in the office of having three screens. You got to be able to have a beer on Fridays as well. So it was kind of fun to do that with coworkers. Um, but really being able to have juggle a few different things and build into some of that technical breadth. During my time at Ping Identity, I was juggling selling a cloud product. I got to learn a lot about installing software in enterprises, and there's a lot of little things that I learned as I went, but really just having that aptitude towards that learning the technology. It's an ever shifting, ever evolving field, and that's what keeps it really exciting for me. And that's also what makes a really great sales engineer. Another piece is having that business mindset or business education. And this is a picture of me presenting to a lot of CISOs at one of our smaller conferences where we had a demo station and they were introducing a lot of people to the concept of this product in cybersecurity that I'm in the process of demonstrating and getting folks excited about. And then lastly, delivering. And that's really where both of those blend together and be of how we present something that's very technical to a non-technical audience and bridging the gap between some folks who really don't have that technical depth, but some of the things that you're accomplishing maybe during a software installation or a kicking the tires, we call it proof of concept in the sales world, may actually get to moving the needle and getting folks to make a purchase of this solution. So it's really about tying all those together, everything from those GB classes that I learned of presenting and then getting a pitch or getting an actual demonstration out to a project course. That all those really I didn't see at the time as really critical, and I use those skills every single day here in my job. So if I was to break it down into just three pillars, it would be these three. And what that actually means in day to day operations, well, the technical side, I'm doing demonstrations of products. And that might be, you folks might have heard of, say, the Workdays of the world or ServiceNow or some of those SaaS applications, Salesforce that exist, Slack, that really are all have a sequence of sales engineers behind the scenes to give demonstrations, get folks excited about making the purchase and finding out who that is within an organization. Is that the IT team, the security team, or is it maybe the marketing collaboration team that's going to be leading that purchase? When I say that, I mentioned a little bit earlier the proof of concepts, getting them hands on with the technology, and really building that excitement. Something that I learned is as a sales engineer, I always thought, oh, sales, I have to be pretty sleazy. That we always have to push and get folks to sign a dotted line. And what's great about this role is it's really sitting a bit different from that, say, account executive who is more there to drive the sale forward. Sales engineers sit in more of a technical advisory role, and it really helps to enable the customer, help them be smarter about what the industry is. And it involves a lot of learning some technical details, but then teaching those out to the business and doing some storytelling, packaging the right set of products. And I compare it to, say, selling a car. You want to we're more maybe the technician that sits right in the passenger seat when you're test driving a car before you buy it, and we're making sure, hey, did you know we have a sunroof? Did you know there's heated seats? Let's make sure we try all the different pieces so that you're buying a car that makes sense for you. And that's really where we sit in the sales engineer role, is kind of doing some of that storytelling, understanding what are the needs. Do you want a mini? Do you need a minivan, or are you past that part in your life and your kids are already grown? You want something fun. So we kind of get to do that in a more technical product perspective, and that is what keeps me in a more dynamic role, and always makes this job really different every week that I do it. And then lastly, that delivery, presenting, standing and delivering to CISOs, executives, and saying, hey, here's what we did with our product during your hands-on demonstration. Here's the value that we're bringing to the table, and really helping them understand that when they're making an informed purchase of what a technical product that in the cybersecurity world, in the, say, business apps world, or whichever role you might sit in with a sales engineer perspective may be. And the last piece, and this is something that I'm doing right after I get off of this presentation, is some of that tech enablement and mentorship. And that's where I get to train a lot of my peers around what does our product do? How do we sell it? How do we talk about it? And how do we get the right folks in the room who are looking to buy a product like ours, and kind of weed out some of the folks who are just maybe trying to learn or maybe aren't good candidates. So yeah, breaks down each, try to give an example of each one of these pillars, but there's a lot more that you can do and kind of bring into the role. Now, I mentioned you folks are really in the best situation right in the middle of this Venn diagram of both that technical and business education, and things that, again, I really didn't understand until I got into the workforce, met other folks, and had just that ability to speak to some technical layers, but also say, hey, well, here's the business reason why we're doing this, or hey, we're trying to sell a product and we're missing a product market fit. I remember from my retailing course or my GB marketing class, like, this is how we built a product marketing fit, and that's why I think this is missing in this lane, and it really, again, the sales engineer is at that unique position within a lot of organizations to have both field experience and seeing that business in action, and the technical side of, hey, when things maybe get broken or you start interfacing with a lot of different technologies, if that's databases or servers or cloud infrastructure layers within a customer environment, we have to have that depth of understanding of where does our product fit there, and also be able to tell that story. So I really feel that everyone in this room is taking steps and paths towards joining things like the CIS Sandbox. Some of those LaCava events that Mark mentioned here earlier are really great ways to see this in action of how Bentley students today are actually taking some of the education they have and turning that out into the real world. Um, I have some time for questions at the end, so I'm going to keep just kind of plugging through here. But certainly, Mark, raise your hand or interrupt me if there's anything you want to dive into. But I want to talk about how I got here. I graduated in 2014. It's a few years ago now, almost 15 years ago, or about 12, 13 or so. But I remember graduating Bentley, sitting there saying, I have no idea what I wanted to do. I talked a lot with Janet L. I think she was really, I think you were really specified on the CIS graduates at that time. So I had a lot of FaceTime with Janet specifically. But doing those, we did those mock interviews. We went through and evaluated what companies make sense, what kind of positions make sense. And I was really fortunate that I was able to line up a job before graduation at Athena Health, which is a electronic health records company in the area. With I think they were based out of Watertown at the time. They may have moved to Boston, and I went through a few promotions here, starting just a more ops associate, and then evolving into focusing on more business systems. And I became the identity administrator or really technical lead there. But as you'll find within your career, organizations change, and that's part of life. But I was able to find some footholds into things, and it really became identity is what drove the most interest for me. And around 2017, that's when I first moved out here to Denver from the Boston area and had my time at Ping Identity, which is a player in the identity and access management space. They do a lot of the back end plumbing for when your banks text you a code or secure all those login events on both consumer and then eventually also for organizations to secure access to all their apps. And that's where I moved from the kind of sitting in the back of IT, administering some systems, to more customer facing. And that's where I really saw more of the Bentley education come to life, because I started as a post sale customer success architect, doing more customer retention at a technical level, and then started to bring into this more pre sales, what we call solution architects or sales engineer role at Ping, and graduated up to a principal sales engineer. Now, after about 7 or so years of that, I got bored and moved on to a Series A, which is if I didn't know what series were at the times, but I learned, hey, there are companies, there are public companies, and then before they go public, they go through rounds of funding. It's usually rounds of sizing of the companies. So I went to Savvy Security in 2024. And this was a much smaller, early stage company, still trying to get its foothold. In terms of what it does, I really couldn't tell you. They're not a company anymore, so it doesn't really matter. But it's part of the fun of riding a Series A wave. As you take a risk, you try to really understand what they do and sit in a role. And I saw a lot of chaos go on. I learned a lot. And then I moved on to my current role here today and moved from just an enterprise sales engineer to now the team lead or manager here of the West region for Pentera. So that's my cycle of my career so far. But the key piece of a lot of that is I was able to line up a lot of luck along the way. And luck is really the only phrase that I can use to call out how I've been able to progress and move around, and just taking advantage of opportunities that were able to be put in front of me. And I use that luck term, and we kind of phrase this whole talk here today in terms of how you folks can really work to enable and create luck. And it can start from tomorrow here at Bentley, and using and trying out some of these really exercises in skill sets, soft skills, technical skills. That CIS Sandbox After Dark was something that I'm interested in. If you have an extra seat on the bus, Mark, I'd love to go to Fenway if I could fly out there. So there are a lot of things like that that can just really help you get an understanding and expressing interest.
If you fly
And
out, we'll save you a seat.
oh, sounds good. Sounds good. But so I say that as right. That's probably what all you folks are thinking. Hey, Greg, you really got lucky. It's not going to be me. And that's what I always felt like when I was sitting in some career presentations. I go, all right, someone's telling me about their career path. There's some luck that came around that. I'm going to be different. Either I'm a CIS major, that was a finance major, or that was a CIS major, but they knew someone in the industry, and that's why they got there. But I want to flip that around a little bit and talk about how you can change and create some luck. Courtesy of AI, I was able to just change a little bit of that Independence Day, Uncle Sam, I want you poster, and give him a little bit of a leprechaun look. Having had some fun with some prompt engineering in that lane. So the first layer of this is preparation, and that's really going to come into just this technical industry. Just in the last 15 years, we've watched things like cloud infrastructures. Everyone went from virtualization to doing things up in the cloud. I remember one of the CIS talks was that Mark sponsored was going to the Microsoft offices and talking all about this new Azure platform, and everyone's going to move their servers to Azure. And I remember sitting there. I brought my dad, and we were just like, "That's wild. No one's going to do that." And here we are today, 15 years later, and nobody doesn't have everyone has a presence in either AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud out there in the real world. Similar with zero trust or doing more identities and new perimeter. During COVID, everyone had to log in and couldn't just VPN in or plug into the wall like they were at the office anymore. It's a more rapid evolution of technical advances, security there. Containerization, Claude code, Codex, vibe coding, right? The evolution continues of the technical stack, and it's going to continue to shift from where we are today. But in terms of the preparation, I was able to lean into all these new technologies by really playing around and developing some of these new skills before I needed them. And I say that as, for example, Docker is something that I learned just playing around the home lab, saying, "Hey, what can I deploy? What can I run? Is it an app here, app there? Maybe it's a proxy. Maybe it's something I just haven't heard of. Is there something that I can do with it?" And maybe it's just as simple as having my own self-hosted website that I'm running and putting in containers. But I learned a lot of those adjacent domains, broke it into small pieces that made sense to me with labs, and was able to document what I learned. And by doing that, when I got to my job and showed up to Pentera, I came in with a breadth of container knowledge that no one else on the team had. Same with AWS. I had some of this technical depth that I brought to the team and interviewed discussing because I had already played around a little bit with these skills and talked about what I had learned along the way. And that learning is not doing it successful the first time. I never do. It's always about just taking the at bats, trying it, breaking it down into something that makes sense. If you, I believe you're still programming class here at Bentley, but that is the class that I did the worst in because it was very conceptual and I needed something to problem solve. And once I had like a use case to learn, and took till probably the end of the course for me to really learn what I was building towards, then things started to click more in my head. And so that's when you're building labs and learning adjacent domains, it's easy to look at something and say that's really intimidating. But when you actually have something to work towards, you can really understand, oh, I'm building some more excitement. Or as doesn't feel like learning, this feels like solving something or picking something up as you go. So leaning into the new is absolutely something that has helped me in my job. Right. Technology will always change. It's the only thing I can guarantee you at the end of this talk is a year from now, we might have different logos in that slide or new technologies that we're talking about. But you get to become the domain expert in something new or different in your company, and that goes a long way for even if you don't want to be a sales engineer, just to be that. To have that more technical domain expertise and have yourself known around the organization for that. My jump from just a business associate to that more customer facing IT was because I learned this identity beast at Athena Health in my first job out of college. And I said, I'll figure this out. How hard can it be? And most everyone else said, I don't care to learn that new thing. But because I did, that helped me get my next job after the fact and network into that. So there's a lot to say for again, just trying new things, seeing if you like it, and You also may say, "Hey, I'm trying a lot of this. This is too hard," and maybe you don't like it, and finding something else as you go. I think is always an important part of testing, trying, and that's why the sandbox is something that is I think a perfect name for what Mark has here, and it's something I encourage everyone to keep using throughout your time here at Bentley. The next lane would be visibility. And I say that as you have to show up, speak up, write it down. Writing internal documents, building in public, being vulnerable. I mean, I have been on many calls with folks under me and said, I don't know how to do this. Let's figure it out together. And it goes a long way of showing someone how you work, but also showing being a little bit vulnerable and saying, hey, I want to show you I'm not an expert at everything the first time. Let me try this. Let's figure it out. But it gets you more well known in lanes that are hard to predict. And I say that as I've had a lot of teammates and folks speak up for me when I'm not in the room because I was visible. I was someone who wrote some documentation that helped someone else a year or two later and was able to they were able to call out and say, hey, thanks, Greg, by the way. I just used your document you wrote 2 years ago and it made a lot of sense to me. I had the same problem that I wasn't able to solve. And so sometimes that involves being public speaking, or it also can just involve having really explicit and credible documentation. Um, and I use that to say, I use a quick quote from Jerry Seinfeld that speaking in front of a crowd is the number one fear for the average person. Number two is death. So the average person would rather be in the casket than doing the eulogy at the funeral. And I say that as that it's a joke from an old comic, Jerry Seinfeld, but it really is true. The more that I go into and see these conferences and something that you may or may not get throughout your career, but as you witness and see folks stand up on stage, have all eyes on them, everyone in the audience, probably 89% of the folks go, I could never do that. And you sitting here at Bentley, having the opportunities to stand up, speak to business leaders, even speaking to professors who have been out into the business world and bringing some of that expertise back into you folks goes a really long way in practicing those skills, trying things out, and realizing that it isn't as intimidating as a lot of folks like to make it out to be. Um, my promotion to my principal role at Ping was mostly hinged on the documentation I'd written and both customer facing and internal stage time, training and enabling a lot of the internal folks with what I had discovered. Hey, here's what I learned. Here's the bumps that I hit along the way. And here's something new that maybe you folks can bring into your everyday. Maybe that's a new product. Maybe that's a new technology of that I'm using to help solve my day to day. I'm doing this with my team. We're presenting what I vibe coded to help be more of a specific project management app for what I do day to day that doesn't fit into, say, a Kanban board or a Notion board and is a little bit tighter to what I want to do. And it's just for me working on these skills. Same thing with this of I wanted to build a presentation and work on some of the public speaking skills. And I say that as career promotions accelerate when your peers that you don't always work with fight on your behalf. And as I learned pretty quickly outside of college, a lot of promotions happen in closed rooms with a lot of managers who you may or may not work with day to day. And those are the ones that decide a lot of who gets a bigger pay bump this year, who gets promoted to the next level that you're chasing. And a lot of the work that you do in your day to day and in making yourself public and visible goes a long way in having folks say, "Oh, I know that Greg guy. Yeah, I'll fight for him this time, and I'll get one of my employees the next round." Right? There's a weighing that happens, and I've learned that from managers of mine, mentors of mine, and also sitting in some of those rooms as a manager. So little luck secret is making yourself visible will go a huge way. Even if you suck at public speaking, as I did when I started, it only gets better the more you try it. And for me, it's now become just this rehearsed play that I've been able to exercise in layers outside of my career as well. I had the opportunity to be a minister at a couple of weddings, one being my sister's, one being my best friend's, and being in public speaking position for my work made that a lot less intimidating. So creating luck goes a long way, goes both ways. Of the more you do it in your career, the more you can open up opportunities in your own life too. The last pillar that I wanted to walk through is having that opportunity. When you're creating luck, it's about really going after and chasing some of the opportunities that are maybe outside your comfort zone. Hey, I'm not ready for this, but let me give it a shot. Oh, there's some cross team project that they're asking for volunteers for. I'll raise my hand. I'll lean. I haven't worked with that product team too much. Let me give it a shot. When you're vulnerable and you volunteer, even when you're unprepared, it goes a long way for building and enabling those opportunities that are hard to chase down. As I found some of those folks that I worked with and maybe a cross team, or hey, we're going to do a week all getting together at headquarters to try to get the brains together in the room and solve this problem with this product. Well, a couple years afterwards, that product person has moved on to another company. This person moved on to another company, but they remember sitting in the room with me. And that was one of the ways that I was able to progress my career. To be the more vulnerable example in the room has really been kind of to what I was saying. One of the ways that I was able to network and progress my way through my career. A lot of the ways that I've moved through hasn't necessarily been the first person that I met. It might have been someone that they knew, and that's what got me the next job. But they spoke on my behalf because they knew how I work. And that's where being that more vulnerable example, being visible and kind of taking after some of those opportunities that may come your way, even if you don't feel like you're ready for them, can go a really long way in weeding through everything in the job market today. I mean, I really don't envy you folks sitting there of in front of all of this AI uncertainty, everything there. But what cuts through are people. And I have one of my siblings is currently on the job hunt, going through it all and realizing that hey, there's a lot of AI screening that's taking me out of applications, but she's leaning into her network, and that's something that I always felt was something I couldn't was hard to understand during my day-to-day times as an undergrad at Bentley, because your network is going drinking with these people on the weekend, or I want to go see this show, this Celtics game in Boston with these folks. Like, right, that's my network. And then when you come out of school, I slowly started to realize that that was my network, and then it just kept expanding with the folks that you work with, and it's that second and third layers of people who know the people that you know as really ways to say, hey, that's how you can find new opportunities that maybe you might get bored as the organization shift. Well, that's how you can kind of chase down that next opportunity when you're ready to make the switch in your career. So those were the three kind of key pillars of how what a sales engineer is, why I think that a lot of you folks are in a great position for a job like this, if that's going down a maybe consultant route, fresh out of college or something to that extent. But it wouldn't be a lucky conversation if we also didn't talk about money and the pot of gold at the end. And so I'll give a little example because this is something that I didn't know when you hear sales, I always thought I got to hit a number and that's going to be my main base. I'm going to make a low salary and have to close a lot of deals. And what's really nice is for sales engineers, even in early opportunities, either out of college, 1 or 2 years out of college, an entry level sales engineer base usually starts around an 80 to 105K intro. And when they say an OTE or total compensation, it's usually a set 80% or 70% salary and a 20 or 30% bonus or commission mixed into the grant there. So that brings, if you hit kind of on target earnings, what they call it, or if you make 100% of the sales number that you're after, you can make in that 95 or 130K pretty quickly. I use some AI to help me out with some of these numbers and give some averages. So asterisk on all of these. They're just ranges, of course. But stock and equity are also common as tenured sales engineers. And especially, there are many principals that I know, principal SEs that are in their 40s, in their early 50s, and they're making well into 250, 300K OTE salaries. So the opportunities are out there. It is, I would be lying if I said we aren't doing this for the pot of gold at the end, as much as it is really a nice blend of technical and business acumen. At the end of the day, something has to pay for my dog's vet bills, all the expensive hobbies that I've shared with you folks that I like to do on the weekends, and that's really the main reason. Beyond the technical aptitude, it is also to make sure that we get compensated fairly for the work that we put in. I have a list of a few questions here at the end, but I want to just take a minute and see if anyone had a hand raised or something they want to throw in the chat before I get into some of my pre-can stuff.
If you have a question, feel free to raise your hand and turn on your camera, or also pop something into the chat.
While they're thinking about it, Greg, I just want to say, as I'm sitting here in green, I love your background. The presentation was amazing, also, and I love the combination of luck, opportunity, and I think what you said. A mentor said to me once, "Don't make your 20s about your comfort zone. Your future self will thank you," and I think you reiterated that here. So thank you for that.
Right on. Start with one of these where right, I used a few phrases here: sales engineer, solutions architect, customer success architect, and I say this as I my journey into helping customers or getting in that more externally facing was having this customer, what's called a customer success architect or post sale knowledge. And that's where I use that as, if I jump back to that bridge of how I moved from my first company out of college to my second company out of college, which felt intimidating. I was moving states, I was changing things up into an unknown. A customer success architect was just someone that they wanted an existing customer to help retain customers. And as a business need, you interface with a lot of different installed organizations, you interface with really smart folks. I met some of the smarter identity folks at Cisco, at really PayPal, some of these pretty major organizations. One of the bigger banks up in Pacific Northwest called BECU, and you learn a lot about how customers use and get value from products, which for me enabled the pre-sales. And so when we say sales engineer, that's someone who's interested, hasn't bought yet, and it's your job to kind of help facilitate the technical end, to push the sale forward and get them to sign and sign a contract. So there are different stages of the customer cycle. And then lastly, a solutions architect is sometimes just an interchange name for sales engineer. But if you see any of those three titles on jobs, they're great ways of, especially for growing and earlier stage companies that need some folks who just can pick up a simple product and help enable whether it's selling folks or prospects on how to get it installed, how to work with it. Typically, the smaller the company, the more hats you're going to wear. And they might just call you a sales engineer or just an engineer, and you're there to really help with the customer side. So, a lot of hats, a lot of different phrases that they may throw around there or tune a little bit. But if you hear anything around sales engineer, solution architect, that's really going to all be in similar to what I've been presenting here today. Consultant is a really great way to get your foot in the door. I know Deloitte was hiring a ton when I was graduating of folks from Bentley who had that technical and business education, and even plenty of. I mean, my brother went to Deloitte Consulting with a finance and economics degree. He did not have a CS, or I think he took one or two CS classes, and that was it. So even if it's something that you say, hey, maybe I don't want to go all the way to this major here at Bentley, this still can be a great career path for you folks. Another question: how do you pick your first job if you have no idea what you want yet? Uh, Great question, and something that I don't know if I have the best answer for, but just go for what you've got. I think I had two job opportunities that I was seriously considering and interviewing in later stages for when I was at Bentley. And I remember talking a lot with Janet on, I've got this one at a smaller company, one at a larger company, Athena Health. Like, how do we know I'm making the right decision? And we must have spent maybe 45 minutes in Janet's office, kind of balancing of which one I really want to lean into, if the packages are a little bit different, everything. And then it really went into a week, but like, where would I want to be? Not in 10 years, not in 20 years, but like maybe 3 to 5 years from now. What makes sense? What's going to build out to that point of what's going to give me the most opportunities to try a bunch of different stuff? And the Athena Health job really gave me that, of try a bunch of different business system apps. I was dealing with, I mean, no one, I doubt anyone uses SharePoint anymore, but I was lead admin at SharePoint day one. They had me admin access to our Workday, our human capital or human management HR platform, our sales platform. They just had us touch a lot. And only then did I kind of help select and say, I really like the more technical stuff, the business more layer stuff. It's more process. That's interesting for some folks. And I had a fellow CIS grad who she went way deeper in the Salesforce or sales side and process, and I went more technical. But we didn't even know when we started which one we would have liked more. So pick a job that gives you the most opportunity, even if it maybe isn't the highest salary, right? If you're debating one's 5K more or this way, one's going to get me a little bit cheaper of healthcare here or there, right? Thinking in a bigger picture, 5 years into that role, if you have the opportunity to grow, you're probably going to negate whatever the decision is, either way, salary wise or comp wise, by getting promoted and facilitating some of that luck creation that we were talking about here. All right. Last question I had. What skill surprised you as being the biggest career unlock? And that's going to be going. I don't know if it's still in the basement of the library. Again, I'm dating myself as an old Bentley grad, but that writing center that you folks have, I was shocked at just how much writing I have done in tightening presentations and speaking. All public speaking all starts from me writing a speech, tightening it, making sure it fits into a 30-minute or presentation like this where it has to fit in 1 hour, and the people are going to get up and leave when the bell rings. Like you gotta be able to make sure you fit your whole message into one kind of cohesive unit. And I tend to find that for my technical job, the first person I'm presenting to are my parents because they're not technical. But if I can story tell to them and they can pick up on what I'm doing, I tune a little bit of writing and make sure they're plugging along, then someone else can as well. And that writing, I mean, my expository Professor Pecknick did a killer job with really helping me along there, and the writing center. I was shocked at just how much I used that in my career. As someone that I was just like, yeah, it's not a technical class, I'm not going to use, it's just a gen ed, and man, that surprised me. Any other questions from the folks here? I'll send this deck over to Mark. He can share it or disperse it if needed. Well, it wouldn't be fair for me to end without giving at least you folks a challenge, and I'll end with a challenge to everyone on this call. Pick one experiment, one lab, join one new session in the next 30 days that increases your luck surface area. If that's opportunity, trying public speaking, trying a new technology, go after it. Pick a date, April 22nd, April 20th, 15th, whatever is 30 days in advance. Show you how bad I am on today's date. But find something in the next 30 days, actually do it. Take after it, create some luck. You've got a lot of things going on, obviously with midterms and things probably happening here. So maybe it comes right after that, but get after it, give it a shot, because you're in a great place to do it, and it's not like your career is on the line if you fail. So it's definitely worth getting after and trying some new stuff. All right, spin it back over to you, Mark.
Greg, that was amazing. Thank you. I have a couple questions for the folks who are on Zoom with us before we stop. And I don't actually recognize most of the names on here, so I'm going to call on some people who I don't know. And if you leave now, you're not going to get any credit for being here because I didn't give you the QR code or the link for attendance. So, and I'm not going to put that up until after we finish this part of the presentation. So please hold on, and I'll put the link for your attendance in chat in a minute. Javin, how about you?
For me, it's definitely just like obviously expanding your luck surface area as we see on the slide, but kind of just taking opportunities that you wouldn't, getting out of your comfort zone to explore new opportunities.
And what are some ways you can do that as a first-year student here at Bentley?
I mean, as Greg mentioned, that you can just like go out to like these talks, hear like different perspectives, like a bunch of things that I heard today I haven't heard before. Um, and this isn't something I normally do. So kind of getting out of my comfort zone and just experiencing those different sort of opportunities.
What's one tangible thing that you can do within the next 5 days?
I can, funny enough, my roommate actually has an interview coming up, and I'm going to help him with that sort of interview because we're both kind of, I guess we struggle with public speaking, just getting out of our comfort zones with that. Obviously, that's the best place to learn, I'd say.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.